Yo guys, what's going on? Robert Warshack here. We're going to be going over the best decks since the patch. We had just finished up streaming, I think about an 8-hour stream today from the patch went live until now. We saw, honestly, a large variety of decks. We saw substantially less Hunter, even though I do believe the nerfs to Hunter, that it's still good. It didn't actually change anything. It's just, I don't think Hunters are smart enough to realize that they could just play the same deck and they will do just as well. I don't think a 1-mana nerf to Tovalier does anything at all. But good news is there's less Hunter, opening up a lot of space for some other decks. So first one we're going to be taking a look at is the Unholy Death Knight. I actually saw a reasonable amount to this today, and I actually lost to it a solid amount. The key cards in this deck are going to be like Shadow Zivs yesterday, which puts 4 minions on the board. You can rewind it. You're looking for like Divine Shield and Reborn. You get some minions to stick. You go the Last Stand, which is give your minions Death Rattle, summon a random 4-cost minion. Once you get your minions to stick, you go Grave Strength, which is going to give all your minions +1 attack, and then you spend 5 corpses to give them +3 instead. So it's basically a 4-mana bloodlust, getting cards to stick on board like Mermy, Twilight Egg, Ancient Raptor, Maze Guide. Everything makes things, makes corpses, and from there you pretty much just go. It's a very board-centric, value trade-esque deck. There's not that many spells, so if you like a board-centric game plan and you kind of like the old, what was it, like I would say like hand buff DK, but it kind of feels like that because, again, there's not that many spells. It's not a bad choice, and I know a few of my buddies, including Tito, hit Legend with this multiple seasons in a row. So definitely not a bad deck there, and again, board-centric deck. We haven't seen one of those in a while. I would say we haven't seen one of those in a while, but since the new rotation, we've seen more board-focused decks, but not too many. All right, we have Dragon Warrior. The deck really hasn't changed that much. It's just a very, very aggro-based deck. If you draw your, like, Erupting Volcano, which is basically a fireball inside a location with 3 durability. It says deal 3 damage randomly split among all enemies. If you played a fire spell this turn, you get to do 3 more. Every spell in this deck, besides I think Eternal Toll, is a fire spell, so you're going to be able to easily do that. And then it pretty much caps out at the Worm and Growmash, but you run the double depth, so you can pump out easily 10 plus damage when you're hitting into Growmash territory, or like Worm and you have an Erupting Volcano, and you can like go face that way. And then of course the Slither Drake, which is a 4-mana 5/8 elusive. Generally this hits face once, if not twice, and that does not include the location on top of it to add a bit of damage there. So yeah, Dragon Warrior still kicking it. It has somehow even gotten more aggro since time has gone on, and you really don't see that much Herald Warrior because this warrior deck just beats that deck. So if you're like going into Dragon Warrior, you're just gonna lose as the Herald player, generally. Not all the time, but yeah. The deck's just faster, does more damage quicker. The Herald does ramp and then does a lot more later game, but there is no later game. You're just dead. All right, moving to the Herald Shaman. This has been a meta contender for a while now. It is one of the few classes that have access to a transform ability. If you're playing against a lot of egg decks, which I know there's Egg Priest, Egg Warrior. I wouldn't say too much Egg Priest, but definitely a good amount of Egg Warrior, Egg Warlock, any sort of just big death rattle card Hex deals with very, very nicely. It also, its Herald ability adds a minion to the board that scales and makes other minions more powerful. So the whole deck really just synergizes super, super well together. You have the inevitable super damage with a High King with the High King's Hammer, which has Wind Fury and then Death Rattle. Shuffle this into your deck with 2+ attack permanently, and then from there you're obviously playing Deathwing, which gives you +5 attack this turn. So you have all of the early game, you have all of the mid game, you have all of the late game with this deck. So in my opinion, Herald Shaman is just one of the easiest, just best decks to play. Most of the time you're just playing minions on curve, placement matters a little bit, and you're just going to town. And on top of that, the deck is fairly fun. Alakir is a fun card, which is get 2 minions with cost equal to this minion's attack. So once you've heralded 4 times, it'll have 10 attack, and then you're getting 10 drops, and those are generally very, very powerful as well, and they all cost 1. So super fun deck there. Yo guys, I appreciate you watching. If you haven't already, this is a subtle reminder to sub to the channel if you haven't. Over 50% of you who watch me each and every day aren't subbed to the channel, and that's a free thing you can do. So with that, let's get back into the content and enjoy. We have the Bubble Paladin. This is going to be the end turn Paladin. This is the one that runs the Royal Librarian. I right now do like silence in this meta. Like I said, there's a lot of egg, there's a lot of big death rattles, there's a lot of people doing some shenanigans as they test out how the new patch works. So having a silence in your deck with also tradable is just solid. You have the aura, which if you don't like the silence, you can just add in a second aura if you like. We run the one location. We run the fins from beyond time to be able to get more of our early game, like acceleration order and twilight eggs. We run the time waves, which is great AoE. And then we run, of course, the two super cheese cards, the unbreaking and the Nor's Dormu. If you get both of these out, you pretty much win. And then you run the scale breaker bulwark, which is really good with the maul and the location as well. So I would say if you're looking for like an easier deck than the shaman deck, the end turn paladin is probably going to be your go-to. Very, very few spells. Like you have the auras, and the auras pretty much just get played from the Geblin anyway. So one of those, just play your cards, and if your opponent does stuff, cool, but if they don't, you pretty much just win because you just curve out so incredibly powerful and well. Moving down to the Aggro Druid, this deck went away and then popped up again and then went away again. Even with the nerf to the helper, this deck is still very powerful. It's one of those decks that just, like, again, even faster and has a lower curve than the two decks we just went over with the Herald Shaman and the end turn Paladin. This deck can just pretty much win on turn, like I would say before 5. If you get the right opener, you just go super wide, buff it up. Forest Gift works with the Wicker Fang. So at any point, if Wicker Fang lives and you have Forest Gift, you pretty much just win because you Forest Gift one of the parts and the parts gives it to Wicker Fang. You're just getting like stupid amounts of damage that way. So yeah, it's just one of those decks that it's like old school Face Hunter, where it's just like the first 3 turns matter the most. If you got minions that stick, you're coasting. However, like let's say your opponent draws like a lightning storm on a very important turn, or they draw like they have like the end turn guy with ramp, it could be bad for this deck. But generally this deck is going to be even quicker games than the previous 2, and it's doing fairly well in this meta right now. I would put that deck on par with probably like a little bit slower than Face Hunter, or maybe on par with Face Hunter. Moving to a newer deck that has gotten a lot of refinement from actually one of my friends, D Money Games, who's back into Hearthstone. He has been playing a substantial amount of Burn Mage, a top 100 legend. This was the list he had posted on Twitter a few days ago. With Hunter not as prominent and people moving into more mid-range to control decks, I definitely can see this deck easing into the meta, as it is it just does so much damage very, very quickly. If you don't kill the board, the chip damage, as soon as you hit to like 15 life, this deck just becomes so scary. And with how much damage and just minions in the early game that are just weaving in a little bit here, a little bit there. You also have the new tunneling geomancers. If you even happen to have a dry turn, being able to prepare this for future turns is more insane. We have the arcane flow, which again, when you give this card spell damage, it works in both parts of it. So you're actually adding 2 spell damage, even though the card technically says 1. So that is pretty insane. But yeah, Burn Mage, it has a lot of gas with like the Conjured Bookkeeper that keeps you going. You have the Smoldering, which keeps you going. You have Blood Mage that keeps you going. While it doesn't look like there's too much draw in the deck, you actually have a sizable amount of draw and a sizable amount of gas. So yeah, kudos to Dan for playing Burn Mage when no one else was at a pretty high legend rank and doing very, very well with it. And last but not least, I saved this deck for last. It's gonna just be Face Hunter. You also can like round Companion Hunter in this. It shows that deck being like bottom of tier B, high tier C. I would say that both Companion Hunter and Face Hunter are still very meta dominating decks. The nerf to Confront to 4 literally does not matter. Most of the time they weren't playing this card on turn 3 anyway. They're playing this card on turn 4, 5, 6, and it's refilling their entire hand, their entire board, and then drawing the second one, right? I mean, granted, maybe some games they were playing it on 3, but generally they're not playing Confront on 3 because they had only played 1, maybe 2 or 3 1-drops. They want to play this when they played like more than 4, 5, 6 1-drops, right? When the Huntards realized that the nerf really didn't matter and they can just go back to Hunter, we're probably just gonna see more Hunter again. But thank God, day 1, I saw just a couple Hunters out there, and there wasn't too much of anything super specific, which was really nice. Honestly, we had a fun day today. There was a wide range of decks, with there being a sort of lean on the Herald Shaman. Definitely queued a lot of Herald Shaman, but nowhere near the amount of Face Hunter and Companion Hunter that I was queuing in last week, when about 50 to 60% of my games was against Hunter. So yeah, that's what the meta's looking like. That's what I saw, and hopefully one of these decks does well for you. Again, these decks are not mine. This is just the snapshot of the best performing decks from today, and then of course a deck from a buddy of mine that has been doing very well and prove to keep doing very well. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed, and I look forward to in our next videos. We're cooking up. We have Dark Gift Warlock, which we hit rank almost 1 today with, and we have the Leyline Mage that got buffed, and that went from, it was Diamond 5 to 3 and then 3 to 1 with the Dark Gift. So yeah, it was a really successful day with Dark Gift and Leylines, and probably hit Legend tomorrow on stream with, we'll probably run it back with those same 2 decks again. So yeah, I will catch you later, guys, in the next video or on stream. As always, I'm Robert Warshack, and happy whatever the hell day it is.
How do I know when my spicy off-meta deck is cooking or it's straight garbage? Hearthstone Deck Tracker gives me all the data I need to be able to find, track, create, and play with the worst possible decks I can to Legend each and every month. From matchup spreads to historical data, I can see where my off-meta decks stand in any meta. Features such as mulligan guides, remaining cards, and turn counters provide information which helps you make the best decision each turn. So if you want to be better than me, go on in the description below, hsreplay.net, give it a free download.
Isn't that right, bud? That's a good boy. You downloaded FH Replay, didn't you?